So you guys know all guests on ZASLOW Show 2.0, always brought to us by our official beer of the program, Johnny Cuba, European roots of the Caribbean soul, a refreshing German lager in a can. Hopefully you didn't drink too much Johnny last night. We're up till 2 a.m. watching the Panthers. It'll be struggle city for you this morning at work. Hey, pick up a six-pack for the weekend at your local Sedano's, Presidente, Win Dixie, Fresco y Mas. Always drink responsibly. And, of course, don't forget Johnny Cuba's mantra, stay tranquilo. Joining us here, SiriusXM NBA Radio. Everybody knows NBA Radio. I love that channel. Justin Termine here with us. Afternoons, of course, with Eddie Johnson. Now, Justin, do you wear it as a badge of honor that the Heat fan hates you? I get tweets. I get the messages. ZASLOW, you won't believe what this Justin Termine is saying today about the Heat. Do you wear it as a badge of honor?
No, I don't wear it as a badge of honor. And as a matter of fact, like they're very similar to me over the course of the last couple of months. Like there's one website down there or Twitter feed, I guess it's 5 Reasons Sports, that keeps like going back and saying a lot of the stuff that I've said over the course of the last couple of months. And I don't get back and forth with people on Twitter anymore, on social media, because I think it's a lost cause. But like I go back and I look at some of the stuff the people that are working there are saying. They're saying the same exact stuff as me over the last couple of months in regard to Kyle Lowry. And I know you're a big Lowry critic, or, Pat Riley and the team that he's put together. I don't, so I feel like everybody's surprised, not just me, who's viewed as like maybe somebody who's critical of the Heat. I think even the locals there are probably surprised by this run that you guys are going through. And I've always given credit, in my opinion, to the people that deserve credit. And right now, the guy front and center of this, really, there's 2 guys front and center. And that's Jimmy Butler, who's been spectacular. And that's Eric Spoelstra, who without question is the best head coach in the sport. And I think that's one of the reasons they've gotten this far, is just how impressive Eric Spoelstra has been. He's done an amazing job. So I'll give credit to guys like Spoelstra. I give credit to Jimmy Butler. I admit when I'm wrong. I said a couple of weeks ago, along with my co-host, that Jaylen Brown might be the better of the 2 players. I let off the show after game 1. I said, I'm an idiot. So I'll take personal responsibility if I'm wrong.
Now, I know you're a Boston guy, all right? You grew up a Celtic fan. So how do you experience, like, are you still like a fan? Like, how do you experience these games?
It's very funny because I feel like I lost like my fandom to a certain extent, but I end up having to root hard for Boston now as a result of so I went through like maybe a 3 or 4 year period where I wasn't necessarily like crazy about the team or die hard, but then people know that I'm a Celtic fan, right? Or I grew up a Celtic fan. So then I get so much heat the next day if the Celtics lose. I'm like, I don't want to get this heat. Or like Eddie will attack me like, oh, the Celtics stink. So I'm like, all right, now I have to root for them, because if not, I'm going to get a hard time from Eddie. I'm going to get a hard time from the fans. So I think that's reinvigorated my rooting interest in Boston. And personally, like, I like the Nuggets probably just as much as I like the Celtics. Like if I go to a finals where it's Celtics and it's Nuggets, I win either way because I'm in love with Jokic. And I think the heat that he has taken the last couple of years is absolute BS. And I'm glad he's shoving it back up the critics' butts.
Has this postseason, we'll get back to the Heat in a second here. I think this postseason has been pretty fantastic. Like, have these playoffs been great?
Absolutely. And I think the reason is because you don't know who is going to win these series. Like you look at the second round, for example, Golden State, the Lakers. You could have went either way with that one. Phoenix, Denver heading in. Now, I think Denver proved to be the much better team, but you said like any team could win this series. Heat Knicks, you didn't know who was going to win that series, I don't think. And I think if you were being honest, you would say that. With the Sixers and the Celtics, like I thought Boston was the better team, but they always do stupid stuff and play down to their competition. You didn't know who was going to win that one. That went 7 games. So when you don't have a foregone conclusion, I think that's great for the sport. You're seeing it in the ratings. It's different from the several years where you had like Golden State was great, Cleveland was great. We knew what it was going to be in the end. We even knew who was going to win the finals. Like this to me is awesome, and I think it's due to the parity.
Does the Heat being an 8th seed, does it offend you? And what I mean by that is, do you think the Heat were just messing around in the regular season, not taking it seriously? Like, does it bother you?
Well, yeah, it bothers me, but it's not just with them. It's like with the Lakers or any lower seed that has success. It would bother me if the Clippers made a run here because I always use them as the poster boys, not taking the regular season seriously. Yeah. And you got like the comments from Jimmy Butler. He's like, oh, I don't start trying until after the All-Star break. I don't agree with that. I mean, I want teams that take the regular season seriously. And the way I look at it is...
But you're not a proponent for shortening the season. You're very against that.
Oh, absolutely. I want 82 games. I don't want to lengthen it either. I want 82 games because I think it's important to I think the best story, maybe the last 15 to 20 years in the sport was Golden State chasing the 72 wins for the Chicago Bulls. It was riveting stuff. And that helps us compare teams from past generations, right? You have the 2013 Heat who won the 66 games, right? Yep. I want to be able to say they won 66. You got the Bulls there in 96 who won 72. You got the Celtics in 86 who won 67. You've got
so you're big into the stats that it bothers you if the stats are not going to be comparable.
Exactly, because how else do we compare generation to generation?
It's a very baseball thing, you know.
Exactly, and I think we've lost a little bit of it. We lost it with baseball because of the steroids, and now you've lost it a little bit, even with the season being the same length. You've lost it a little bit because this is essentially the steroid era of basketball, where all the numbers are inflated.
What do you make of Jimmy Butler? And what I mean by that is, obviously he's phenomenal, but it's hard to explain. There aren't very many superstar players who, to me, a superstar player is a guy who's a superstar in the regular season, 82 games, shit teams all throughout. You have great numbers, and you can replicate those numbers in the playoffs when you're playing a great team every single night. That's a superstar. Jimmy Butler takes those star numbers, and he is leaps and bounds better than those numbers in the postseason. How do you explain it?
Yeah, it's weird. I don't know if it's the effort level. I mean, he kind of came out and admitted it, right? By saying
he was all NBA second team. He was pretty great this year, you know?
Well, I agree. And it's what we see in the regular season, he's not this player in the postseason. That's why, I've said, we stumbled on the conversation yesterday. You know how you'll have stuff where you plan out, hey, I want to talk about this, I want to talk about that. Then there's other stuff you stumble on. And we talked about how, Jimmy Butler is, if he won a championship, he wouldn't be the worst, best player on a championship team. He's that talented. But he might be. Well, I guess you would have to go to the Pistons and say Chauncey Billups, Ben Wallace, Rasheed Wallace, maybe somebody from the 79 Sonics. But the point is, he might be the worst regular season player of any team to, best player to win a championship, because he's not the same player in the regular season that he is the postseason. I wouldn't call him one of the 10 best players in the regular season, but I call him one of the 5 best postseason performers.
Is he a Hall of Famer?
Very difficult question. I guess
so hard.
Yeah, I think it's going to depend on. Well, first of all, I will say yes, but that's not my Hall of Fame, right? Because there's several guys that wouldn't be in my Hall of Fame. You look at people talking about Andre Iguodala, and they talk about it like it's a foregone conclusion. Andre Iguodala's in the Hall of Fame, not in my Hall of Fame, but I think the way the current NBA Hall of Fame or the Basketball Hall of Fame is set up, Andre Iguodala probably is. But if he wins a championship, he probably is a Hall of Famer. Kyle Lowry, I think, already is a Hall of Famer. You look at the team they're playing, right? All right, Jason Tatum probably going to be a Hall of Famer whether he wins a championship or not, because he puts together the great regular seasons. But Al Horford's another guy. All right, Al Horford has the college championships. He wins a championship here in the NBA. Decent NBA career, bunch of all-star games, but not all-time player. He probably makes the Hall of Fame. But yeah, if Jimmy Butler wins a championship this year, he's going to the Hall of Fame.
Do you think other, we've seen these coaches fired over the last few weeks, championship coaches. Do you think other team owners look at the Miami Heat and they're doing it with undrafted this guy and undrafted this guy and undrafted this guy and undrafted this guy? Why aren't we able to do that? Do you think other owners are having conversations like that?
Well, there's a lot of conversation I'm sure owners have. I'm watching that Lakers game last night, and I'm sure Ted Leonsis, now they already got rid of Tommy Shepard, but he's probably going, how the heck did we give this guy up for Kendrick Nunn and a couple of second-round picks? So he's agitated about that, and I'm sure there's other owners around the sport going why is Spoelstra able to do this with guys that are undrafted when we've got like a bunch of top picks, and we can't do this. And I think one of the reasons is like I'm critical of Pat Riley because I always say like, all right, go do that out in Milwaukee, go do it in Minnesota. Like I think he's benefited from the fact that he's in Miami and he get guys like LeBron and Shaq down there, Jimmy Butler, because those guys aren't going to be, let's be honest, they're not going to demand trades to Milwaukee or to Minnesota. They're doing it there. So I think it's a built-in advantage. But where I give Pat Riley credit is he gives his head coach the power. He is like, I'm not firing this guy. I don't care what the stars think. You're going to listen to him. And how many organizations can you say that about? Maybe it's just Miami. Maybe it's San Antonio. It used to be maybe in Utah with Jerry Sloan. But I think that's probably the list.
Yeah, and even with Jerry Sloan, there was essentially an end date, because he had the whole dust up with Darren Williams and it ended for him. You're right. Like it's so rare. Let's as far as the Heat go, the rest of this series, I think the biggest key for them last postseason against Boston, Bam Adebayo really had a difficult time against Robert Williams. Bam would get the ball and he was intimidated by this great defender. And I felt going into this series, if we got the last postseason against Boston, if we got the Bam that we got, the aggressive Bam that we saw most of this regular season, the Heat win that series last year. So I felt going into this series, I think it's a redemption type series for Bam, or it can be. And I think we saw that in game one.
100%. I said this, I don't know if you listened to the show yesterday with Eddie and myself, I said the same exact thing is that, and we said the same thing last year about that series, that Bam Adebayo's lack of aggression really cost him that series. It came down to a Jimmy Butler missed three, and he got no help from Bam in regards to the consistency. I think Bam had like a 31.
Bam was great that game 7, but the rest of the series.
Exactly. He had like a 31-point game, and it's all about his aggression. But I think that's probably a frustration Heat fans have always had with Bam Adebayo. If he's looking for his shot, then yes, he's a big help. If he's not, and if you go back and like look at the game logs the last 2 years, and I thought his series against the Knicks, by the way, was one of the better that he played. But you go back and you look at like his game logs from last year, and it frustrates you when you see like he took 5 shots, he took 7 shots, he took 6 shots. Can't have that Bam. Got to have the Bam that took, maybe even want more than the 13 he took in game one. He was really efficient. I think he was 9 to 13. But you get that aggressive Bam Adebayo, then yeah, that's a big win for you. And the other thing with like Butler, who's fantastic player, right? We were just waxing poetically, but I think it's the same thing about him that it is with Bam to a lesser extent. And listen, Jason Tatum's in the same boat, right? Where you'll look at Tatum and you'll see like this awesome game, and then you'll see the dip. If you go back and look at what Jimmy Butler did, he was historic last year, and I think it was 4 games, right? Historic. Then he had the 3 games where it was like 6, 8, and 12 points or something. Like, so you just want the consistency out of Butler where every single night it's around 30 points and, he's doing what the game needs. You can't afford to have him fluctuating and yo-yoing like we're seeing Anthony Davis with the Lakers.
Let's look at Boston here. I don't know the team as well as you do, obviously.
Yeah.
But from what I see with Joe Mazzulla, who's obviously become a punching bag, gives off a little bit of smartest guy in the room vibe to me. All right. And, I get it that it's been his thing all year. Like, he didn't forget to call the timeout in the third quarter. It's been his thing all year long. But for me, it's like, if Eric Spoelstra will call a timeout after 2 consecutive baskets to break up your run, I feel like you could use a timeout instead of just letting you guys figure it out.
Yeah, I tweeted it out right after Spoelstra did it. I didn't tweet in the third quarter Mazzulla didn't call a timeout, which I thought was ridiculous. I did tweet it. I think it was 7 consecutive points the Celtics scored to open the fourth quarter to cut it from a 12-point lead to a 5-point lead. And what did Spoelstra do? Spoelstra said, like, even if you don't have any, even if Spoelstra has nothing to say to his team or he has no play to draw, right? Like, I don't care. Call the timeout, sit there, and like just use it to cool off the other team and to, to change the mindset a little bit. So Mazzulla doesn't even have to say anything. It's a 46-25 quarter. All right. You at one point you're up by 12. That lead completely dissipates, and you're not going to change the feel of the game at all. I got a major problem with it. And yeah, like the smartest guy in the room thing. We had Charles Barkley on the show yesterday, and unsolicited, he brought up, like, what are you doing going at it with the media? Like, every coach is going to have a good game. Every coach is going to have a bad game. You don't sit there and brag to the media when you have a good game. You just let the results speak for themselves. Jokic, everybody is on Jokic's case the last 2 years. The guy can't win. The guy's a stat pad, or the guy's only winning MVPs because of analytics or because of his race. Is he fighting with the media? Is he bragging to the media after every big game? No, he's going out there and winning. And once he wins, then that'll shut the media up. And that's what Joe Mazzulla's got to do.
What about Tatum here? I would assume he had a big problem with his fourth quarter performance, game one.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And to me, it's flummoxing in that you got game 6 where he scores 16 points in the fourth quarter. Then you look at game 7, he gives you 51 points, historic performance. Then in the first half of game 1, 18 points. So this guy is absolutely rolling. Like, he's putting together a 6-quarter stretch or so, 7-quarter stretch, where he's playing the best basketball maybe of the postseason from anybody.
Yeah, it's like 85 points in a game and a half. He was running
exactly
on.
Like, so he is playing at the highest possible level. Then he takes 4 shots in the second half, and he doesn't take 1 shot in the fourth quarter. And yeah, that's on him for the most part. Like, that's on him, but it's also on the coach. Hey, let's call a timeout and draw up a play for him to get him the basketball. So it goes back to Mazzulla a little bit. But Tatum's had this tendency throughout the course of his career, and that's the one issue where Marcus Smart, he was fantastic in the first half. He's setting up all his teammates. He's got the 10 assists. And, I think he's an underrated player, but that's where you'd like having that old school point guard where Chris Paul's going to go like, this guy definitely needs a shot. Kyle Lowry's going to go like, this guy definitely needs a shot. And that's one of the things they're lacking as well. So it's on Tatum, but it's also on the point guard. It's on his teammates, and it's on Joe Mazzulla to make sure that he's featured.
I hate series is over type questions. First 2 games. Is this series over? I saw on First Take yesterday, is Boston in trouble? They're in trouble because they're playing a team that can't beat them, but they're not in trouble because they lost game 1, But tonight, if Boston were to go down 0-2, this Boston team can win in Miami. We see it every year. All right. Is it big trouble if Boston loses this game tonight?
Oh, absolutely. You could drop the first 2 games like the Lakers did to Denver, and I still think Denver's going to win that series, but you lost them on the road. Okay. Yeah. So, and your guy, Pat Rice, I think the one that said, your series doesn't start until
I hate that phrase.
Yeah. So do I. But the point is that you can lose 2 games to begin a series on the road and still come back and win. It's not going to be easy, but you do that at home and it becomes significantly harder. I guess I would count out most teams. I wouldn't with Boston only because look at like 2 road wins that they've gotten in the last 2 years. Game 6 on the road, they lose, they're eliminated. Tatum gives you 46 points. Philadelphia on the road, game 6, you lose. Tatum gives you the 16 points there in the fourth quarter. They win. So they've won some pretty big road games with their back up against the wall. So I wouldn't say it was over, but I would say that they're like messing with fire. And the issue with Boston is, and I think you'd agree with this, they were better than Milwaukee last year, right? And it went 7 games. You played with fire, but you took care of business. Miami last year, you're a better team than Miami last year, talent-wise, but you played with fire. That went to 7 games. It shouldn't have been. It should have been a hard 5 or like maybe an easy 6. Then you're better than Philadelphia this year. Went 7 games, but you won game 7. Eventually, you're going to go 7 games with a team that you're more talented than, and you're not going to get lucky. You're going to lose. Somebody's going to get hot. Duncan Robinson's going to hit 5 threes. Gabe Vincent's going to hit 5 threes on 7 attempts, something like that, and you're going to end up losing, even if you are the better team.
Let's talk a little bit about the Western Series here. I think going into the series, I think everybody got a little bit caught up in what a cool story it is with the Lakers. They make the trades in the middle of the season. LeBron's 38 years old. It's LA. And I think the reality of it is Denver is just a lot better than them.
Yeah, LA is a really good team. They've got plenty of depth. They're a very good defensive team. They just got together, and it's the same issue that Phoenix had. Like, they don't have the continuity. Now, I think the Lakers are better than Phoenix because they're much deeper than Phoenix. But these guys are playing on a string right now. They know each other. They know the insides and outs of their games. And I think that's something that I miss about like the 80s and 90s where, and this is what Golden State has and I love, is, all right, if we're as equally talented or maybe we're a little worse, at least we have that experience together where we've been in these spots. And that's the benefit of like taking the regular season seriously, right? Is that you work on the stuff that you're going to need to do. So once you get to the postseason, it's second nature. And I think that Denver has that down the stretch of games. And that's not something that LA has. Now, can LA win this series? Can they come back and make it 7? Absolutely. But yes, the better team is Denver. And one of the reasons is what people are finding out right now. The best player in the world is Nikola Jokic.
It's, I mentioned this a few days ago on Twitter. Did you vote for NBA awards? Did you have votes?
Yes, I did.
Who'd you vote for MVP?
I voted for Embiid, but that's different than saying I think Embiid is the best player.
Like the point that I was making was I get Embiid winning the award. It's fine. Like Shaq won it one time. It doesn't go to the best player. But I mean, Justin, I watch these games now, and especially because Embiid flamed out the way he did, and now you see what Jokic is doing. Like he's not even close. Embiid's not even close to the player Jokic is.
No, I agree with that. My co-host, Eddie Johnson, on my show disagrees. We fight about it significantly. So all I want is fair treatment. So we went out to the draft lottery and talked to a bunch of guests over the last couple of days that are involved in like the First Take type of programs, Richard Jefferson, Monica McNutt, whatever. And one of the questions I had, are we going to see the criticism for Joel Embiid? Because now I don't necessarily know if Embiid deserves to be crushed, but I just want fair treatment. I don't want the hypocrisy. And what Jokic had to go through the last 2 years, despite not having his 2 best teammates, was an absolute travesty. And he was like used as fodder just to be able to do a show. And the people that were talking about him unfairly, like slandering him. Okay, well, if you got on Jokic's case, I guess it's fair then to do it on Embiid, because Embiid played much worse after winning the MVP than Jokic ever did. And, Embiid didn't have the excuse of missing multiple teammates, whereas Jokic had that excuse.
What's going to happen with Philly this offseason?
It's a mess because the one thing I'd be the most concerned about is just like, when is Embiid going to lose his cool? Now, I don't think Embiid's been a good postseason player, but I also think that organization has it's been filled with malpractice in regards to like the roster they put around him. They had all these assets. They messed them up from, taking multiple centers when they've already got these guys on the roster like Okafor and Noel. You're trading Mikal Bridges, who would be a perfect spot. That'd be a perfect spot for him. The Jason Tatum fiasco with the trade backwards, bringing in Jimmy Butler, choosing Ben Simmons, Tobias Harris, the max contract. They have made so many mistakes surrounding Joel Embiid that you feel bad for him in that regard. But if they lose, like, it's a double-edged sword. You give James Harden a 4-year deal, like, you're screwed there, right? But if James Harden walks for nothing and you replace him with nothing, you're kind of screwed there, and you certainly take a major step back. So they're in a really difficult spot to me.
I think they're going to give Harden the money.
Oh, I do too. Now, whether he takes it, if he has like an equal offer from Houston, I don't
buy
know.
that he just wants to go back to Houston. You buy that?
I kind of do. But that would tell me like, all right, he prioritizes like lifestyle and not getting the pressure and just being able to take a ton of shots and be the man in town. Like, that's what it would tell me about Harden. But yeah, I guess I kind of buy it. You don't?
Well, I think I buy it from the perspective of that he's going to choose lifestyle, because he seems to be that kind of guy who prioritizes lifestyle ahead of working super hard and winning a championship. But I mean, it's kind of unprecedented that you would leave the team that's offering you or can offer you more money, who's a good team. I mean, I don't, whatever, my opinion, but they're a good team, and you're going to a team that's definitely terrible and is in disarray. So it's kind of unprecedented that he would do that.
No, I agree. I mean, it's not the same thing, but it was like, to me, it was Kawhi prioritized lifestyle when he left Toronto for the Clippers. Now, he didn't go to a horrific
They were
team.
already good. They were a playoff team. They were a good team.
Yeah, they were a playoff team. Plus, he was bringing Paul George with him, but it was still like you're leaving something where you got a chance to win the championship the next year, and you're a better team for something that you're making a decision lifestyle on. But yeah, so I think, don't you think they're kind of screwed either way? Like, they bring him to give him 4 years, like they're screwed, because then they can't add around Embiid moving forward. But then he leaves and they're screwed, because as much as you want to crap on Harden and what he did at times, like, he was their best player in 2 of the 3 wins that they got in the series against the Celtics. And he did lead the league in assists this year, averaging 20 and 10. And he was a borderline all NBA guy when I had to go fill out the ballot. I didn't put him there, but I could have easily put him there. So like as frustrating as he is, he's like still a really good player. He'd be losing for nothing.
But if you can't count on him in the postseason, it doesn't mean anything. And we've seen like can't count on him in the postseason. It means nothing.
No, I agree, but again, he was still the best player you had in 2 of your postseason wins. If they didn't have him this year, they would have lost in 5 games instead of 7. So it's a difficult decision for Daryl Morey.
Lastly, here, Justin Termine, were you rooting watching the draft lottery? By the way, like you were out there. Did you get to experience the whole process at all?
No, I'm in the hallway outside of where they do the drawing and outside of where they have the actual television.
But did you get to watch like the TV show live?
No, because I was on air as it was happening. So we're basically getting the picks right as they're taking place, and then I'm reacting to them live on air as it unfolds.
Was there a team you were hoping? You thought, it'd be cool if this team got the number 1 pick?
I thought Orlando would be pretty cool with like all the length, and they're ready to win right now. Like I think they're going to make the postseason next year anyway, even without Victor Wembanyama. So I thought they would have taken a massive leap forward. I mean, I guess it would have been cool to watch him playing with LaMelo Ball. The most interesting one from the perspective of like a talk show is probably Portland, because then it's like, do they now trade Damian Lillard, or do they keep him and do they try and team him up? Because my perspective, Portland lands him, you got to trade Lillard because he's no longer your priority. Now you have to do everything that you can to cater to Wembanyama. And yes, like maybe you're a competitive team this year with both those guys, but it'd be better to make sure, hey, we're going to be really solid in 4 or 5 years. And if we get picks in return for Lillard, we get some young players, we can team Wembanyama up with those guys. So I thought that would have been fascinating to be able to discuss over the next couple of months.
Why do I watch Wembanyama highlights? And when I watch Chet Holmgren highlights, I feel like Chet Holmgren is going to break. I don't feel that way watching Wembanyama.
Yeah, maybe it's because you've already seen Chet break a little bit. But I mean, it is a very good point. And this guy just I've watched a bunch of his games on the NBA app, so you can do that, and they're still playing. And I also I called the game a couple of weeks ago that he did. And I'm telling you, it is scary because not only does he have all the physical gifts, right? He's got the mentality as well. I saw him read a passing lane, and then he's got these long arms, right? The wingspan, and he just took the ball and he goes down the other way and dunks it. That was like a minute into the game. So the combination of physical gifts and the IQ, this is a guy that's doing the Pete Maravich dribble drills. I don't know if he did those as a kid, where he's got the VHS tape, and Maravich is running through all the dribbling drills. He's 7'4" doing that type of stuff. And I'll tell you, we always ask guys because I don't watch colleges closely and certainly not overseas. So we sit down with a guy at the draft, the lottery, and we're talking to these guys for the first time. I'll say, who did you watch growing up? Who do you pattern your game after? And for example, Scoot Henderson, you can come up with a million examples of Scoot plays like this guy, he plays like that guy. You can't do that with Wembanyama. He is so much different than anything we have ever seen. I guess maybe the closest offensively is Durant. Durant, even to this day, cannot dribble the basketball like Wembanyama. Durant's got ball handling issues. Wembanyama at 19 doesn't have those issues.
Crazy. Justin, tell everybody how they can catch you. Of course, the Heat haters know exactly when the ones who call you a Heat hater know exactly when to catch you. Tell everyone else when they can catch you.
Yeah, we're praising the Heat the last couple of days, so jump on board. But you can get us on SiriusXM NBA Radio if you have a subscription to that. If you don't have the subscription, you can watch us for free. All you have to do is download the NBA app, and then you go to the little watch option there. And between 4 and 7 Eastern time, when we're live, you can click in and you can watch Eddie Johnson and myself again 4 to 7 Eastern time. Zach.
How about I'm getting you out of here without any of the John Morant bullshit? You don't have to answer any of that stuff. How about that?
That's a relief. Yeah, I mean, it's really unfortunate just because, the playoffs, like you mentioned, have been awesome. Yeah. And we're sitting here and we're talking about John Morant. And unfortunately, that's what the public wants as well. I was on the air the day after Game 7, Zaz. Celtics Sixers, historic rival. Tatum, a historic game, 51 in the Game 7. The next day, we jump on the air. the entire like lines, when you get all the calls, jaw this, jaw that, jaw. It's
he released the statement in like the fourth quarter of the game, right?
Exactly, from chat. What is it? Chat GPI.
I don't even know. I don't even know what that is. I don't know what that is. I don't know what that is.
Spits it out. I don't know what it is either, but apparently artificial intelligence wrote it for him.
Great job, Justin. Thanks for joining us. I appreciate it.
All right, yeah, you're going to return the favor because we're going to have you on at some point next week. So I'll give you a ring for that.
Awesome. Thanks, Justin.